This is my indie film review of Behind the Door, or Derrière la porte, if you want to hear my French accent. Written and directed by Leonardo Valenti. And it stars Leonardo Valenti as well as his family. And it was part of one of these 48-hour filmmaking challenges. I believe it was for the White Rose Film Festival. And this version of the film that we saw isn't actually the one that was in that festival. They then used the footage, took it away, and did a bit of revision on it in terms of the editing and sound and stuff to present this version now that it's about 5 minutes long. And essentially, it's a mixed genre piece where we get a sort of horror thriller setup, a man in a hotel who has overslept, attempts to leave his hotel room and can't. It's locked and he's sort of forced to stay where he is. Obviously panics. He calls the receptionist to ask to let him out or find a way to, because he's stuck. And turns out she's in the bathroom. And he, whilst he's doing this, he's also communicating with his wife, who's in another country, and is obviously not happy to hear that he's not going to be back because he's overslept and missed his travel back. But also then when learns of this woman who's in his hotel room, takes it the wrong way, and there's a slight misunderstanding there, which creates kind of comedic effect at the same time as the potentially horror and even supernatural stuff going on. So there's a lot going on just in 5 minutes of this film, and you're immediately drawn into the proceedings because it's very close framing of the character, especially he's on the phone and trying to describe his situation. So you're immediately pulled into the atmosphere, and I think Valenti does very, very well to present us with lots of different shots. It's not like loads of static camera shots. There are, but there's also lots of framing. There's different ways that we get presented, albeit with very simple locations. I mean, it's right on the low end of indie filmmaking in terms of budget. You know, you need to really, really lower your expectations in terms of production values here. But as I said in my written review, that actually links quite well to the genre because there is a strong horror element here. Audiences are okay with that. You know, it's not something that necessarily we demand because sometimes the scariest stories feel real. You know, it's that kind of Blair Witch Project type thing. Whereas, oh, okay, hold on, am I watching something? You know, and it's not trying to do that. It's not like a mockumentary, but I think the point being that actually audiences of horror films and scary stories are slightly okay with less production value than, say, like an action film. And the tone of the film, so that links slightly into that low budget, it feels more like a skit. It feels more like something that you'd see on social media now, and that's absolutely fine. I think, you know, the way that we consume films, I hate that word, consume, but the way that we do, you know, experience them is changing, and people are more likely to watch things now on their phones or on devices, and so the whole thing is filmed portrait mode, like this film review, and that is then, you know, it's meant to be watched like that. I actually watched it on a screen because I thought I was going to be watching it, yeah. And also I needed subtitles, so I think it's easier to do that on a bigger screen. So the way that it's been presented is very contemporary. It's very much saying this is a modern approach to filmmaking, and we are seeing more of this now. We're seeing filmmakers take into account maybe the platform in which they plan for the piece to be out there. And I think maybe this was also part of the original challenge for the film festival. So there is that modernity to this piece. I do think potentially, obviously, the limitations of the festival have meant that the piece does feel very rushed. They didn't want to film anything new. They didn't want to extend it or expand on it. I think it needs that. I think as a viewer, you may get infuriated a little bit with the way that we're sort of rushed through the storyline. I think there's a lot more to unpack here. The characters, you know, what's going on, why is he there? You know, there's a lot there of things that go unexplained. Doesn't necessarily mean you need all those details, but I think it would enhance the experience to have more of that, and to perhaps not rush so quickly through the things that go on. There's something happens at the end of the film as well with his son. I don't want to spoil it, but that's really, really great. It's a great thing that sort of happens, and I'm like, oh yeah, would have been better to build towards that. It kind of comes very, very quickly, and it doesn't quite feel that it has its cinematic weight that it could have had. But that being said, I think it's one of those pieces that you enjoy it for what it is, and if you know the limitations that it was under, like I did, you can really appreciate what's actually being delivered here. The atmosphere is really good. It's very tense, if a little rushed. And yeah, try and seek it out if you can. We will put I think there's a very small trailer. I'll try and put it on the review, but if not, it's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube Shorts. And you should be able to follow Valenti's YouTube channel. We'll try and tag them in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. But yeah, the film is called Behind the Door, and yeah, I thought it was really, really fascinating.